Okay, I wake up to this. A NASA mission to bring samples from Mars back to Earth has been canceled. Kaputs. Not going to do it. Thank God. 14th of January 2026. Now, I have followed Mars very, very, exceptionally well, as much as I can, as much as they will present. And they were presenting a lot of stuff in the first few days. It was absolutely amazing. When curiosity hit and started looking around, I have those pictures, and now they're pretty much, I can't find much about Curiosity's first days. And the first days presented things that are undisputable about life. And it's life, gigantic life, just like it is here on Earth. Gigantic. And it is also in space. Bennu, they just came back with a piece of Bennu, and it 100% proves that is biology. And I know exactly what kind of biology it is, and I'll show you exactly what it is. This has been just unbelievable not to pay attention to what is staring them in the face. Very hard to accept. All right, I'm going to show you something from here on Earth. This is from the United Kingdom, and it is Huntington Beach, or Huntington Cliff. And all these balls are coming out because they're in this wall. And there's this layer above, which is skin. This is flesh, and these are the anchor balls. And here it is in the human body, or in a creature's body. You have the skin. Okay, you have all of this fleshy red stuff that's here. And embedded in that red stuff is a whole batch of these little balls which have eroded out and fallen here. Now, what happened to the red stuff? Well, the red stuff became mud. You see it? It's all mud. And those balls are here. If you know what the Moki marbles are, there they are there. It's just the same as these, only this has completely eroded away, and all of the edible stuff on these stones has been eaten. This is moss. That's moss of some sort eating these edible parts that surrounded all these balls in a wall. And that's what they look like in a micro electron microscope shot. That's what's in our skin, so you can move your skin and pull it this way and that way. They're just nothing but little tiny spheres. And these spheres are like this, attached with collagens. Collagens are real floppy. That's why they can move so nice, but then they come back to where the balls are supposed to be anchored. This is here on Earth. Moki marbles. Just look it up. Moki marbles. They're Utah, Arizona, and plus they're all over the place. But I'll show you the ones in Alaska, because this is moss, and the ones in Alaska have moss on them too, only it's green, because it's fresh water. This is salt water. You see these? Those are the same balls. And they have edible stuff because they were surrounded by flesh, which has just eroded away. And the balls, though, they have all these little tiny gnarly spots inside of them, and the stuff goes inside and grows. And until it finally eats what's left here, and there's no more greenness, then they become the Moki marbles. Now look it up here. Look at how many of these balls are. It's not just 1, 2, 3 here, and they're all covered with green. Same kind of stuff is growing on every single one of them. So that's indicative to me that green stuff was in the body of the creature and doing this particular work, whatever it is, to create whatever it created in here. And that's why it's on every single one. I mean, it's not just one here or there. It's every one of them. And I'm sure this goes for a very long distance. So this was skin of some creature. Now you get over the sizes. I cannot convince you of anything. You just have to look and see and think. But to just say, oh, it's impossible, that's where people have lost the ability to think when they say it's impossible. So any geologist would say, oh yeah, those are the Moki marbles. Well, no, they're the Mars blueberries. These little balls are the same balls I showed you before up in Alaska. They're green. Over in Huntington Beach area, they're brown because they're saltwater bacteria versus, you know, fresh water. But once everything erodes away and all the edibles have been eaten, you end up with the balls. And these are up on Mars. This right here is the basement layer of skin. On top of that goes the balls. On top of that goes the skin. So this is the top skin, all the fluty, flowy stuff in the middle, and then the basement layer. And that's what this is, basement layer. All right, so I've shown you what skin looks like very close to the top layer. If you pinch this together, you'd squish these. These little bags would turn, you know, they'd show a pattern where they were pushed together, all the filaments. And if you pull them apart, they'd show they were stretched. That's how these things work. Now let me show you what they call the Mars Morse code. It's just exactly like this. And the balls are there, and there's a couple of pinch spots, and there's some pulled spots. Just exactly what would happen here. So this is the Mars Morse code. This is actually skin. This would be like something along this line. Sort of just, you know, mix around in here. When they pinch together, you get something like this. All these things pinch and they get close to each other, but they can flop back out when they are relaxed. They're not squished. But it's the beauty of it is you can do that, you can do this, you can do this, you can do that, and they will all come back to being like that eventually. These are squinched together. So you got a wrinkle here, and this is pulled between the wrinkles. You see it? And the balls are the Moki marbles. Oops. Eventually, those balls would just be by themselves. Now this, you can see this is Mars. It's like sandblasted. It's like dusted. It's to give it this fine detail. You would not see these straps on Earth. Well, I have seen them. Yeah, well, you know, I have seen them, but there's nothing like this. This is like just barely dusted off, dust off for, you know, 3,500 years. You end up with this. Now, these are the shots that came back in the first few days. Right away, these came back, and then the Mars crab. Now, check this out. This is called the Mars crab. And they see this formation. Here it is right here. This is blown up. I knew immediately what it was. That is an artery. We're talking about creatures that nobody can get their heads around. The skin cells are 30, 40 feet blocks in some of these creatures. Nobody can get their head around it. Hold on one second. See if you can get your head around this. All right, these are different types of cell junctions. These blocks are cells, and they coat all kinds of different things in your body, your skin, and all so forth. They're very, very, very small, singular cells. And then they have this big red area in here, and this is where you have tight junctions up here so that they can't come apart and things invade. This is what's in us. And let me show you what. Look at this. These are the same cell junctions, same cells, and with this same red stuff in between, because the top is the tight junction. See how tight those are? See how tight? And then down in the middle, they have some gooey stuff that does something, I don't know what. This was from Outer Range. And he saw this while he was flying his drone, and it freaked him out. I don't blame him. And every one of these layers is a layer of tissue, and there's zillions of them. Because if you get up real close to these layers, you'll see that inside each one of these layers, there's hundreds of more layers. And this is the top skin, basically. Get your head around that. You have to be able to think in these terms of these sizes. Otherwise, you're just going to fall over. You might as well leave the room. Go back to playing your games. This is truth and reality, and this is what our planet was made of. And it's Mars, too. Mars is the same as Earth. And both Earth and Mars were basically, well, Mars was destroyed, but Earth was almost destroyed right here in the Grand Canyon because of an impact of Venus, which was literally born from the Great Red Spot on Jupiter. And it almost hit Earth, and it did hit Mars and just tore the shreds out of Mars. And the Grand Canyon is not erosion, it's something slapped it and it just ripped everything out of it. And that's it right there. That's not erosion, my friends. It's just, you got to use your mind and start to think. All right, I showed you what cells look like and that these are cells. And they have the cell junctions, the tight junctions, the same thing. This is not erosion. This didn't wash away gently and so forth. No, this was ripped and torn to shreds during the Venus impact. Now, Venus not only impacted us, this is Mars. This is wider than the United States, and this is a tremendous impact. And at that point in time, it lost its magnetic field, and this is Mars, and its magnetic field and its atmosphere for all practical effect. There is some atmosphere, but not much. And here's Venus. Now, think this through. I just showed you Mars, torn to shreds. We know the Grand Canyon is just torn to shreds. What do we have here? We don't have torn to shreds. We have electrical impact. Any welder can tell you that's electrical discharge. These are welding scars. Where you're too far away and they're just creating scars. Now, Venus spins backwards, which may have something to do with it trying to absorb energy. All right? Ours was given off most of it. And so Mars, all of it. Ours and the Earth, I believe, created one of these, or it discharged to Venus. These are discharges. These aren't gouges. So they're two separate events, two separate outcomes from the same event. This puppy came too close to this and just gouged it like crazy. The same thing with ours, did that. Now, where did it come from? I say it came from the Great Red Spot. Right from there. That's what Velikovsky said. He said everybody on Earth had the same story. A fiery comet was born from the feared god Jupiter. Jupiter literally is a god. You have to go back to some of these ancient texts and then say, does it make sense? Yes, it does. That's Jupiter. And this is a vagina. I'm sorry, this is exactly what it is. And that little strap there, if you look in the anatomical, I can't show that anymore because they gave me a warning for showing too graphic, but it's anatomical. And it's this same thing. This is the hairline, basically. All of the different parts, the labia majora, minora, everything. And as the wind sweeps by this, it spins. And it's trying to push the vagina this way. See, pushing all this? See all that stuff being pushed, push. It's trying, but it can't move because of the anchor. That's an anchor. So go get your little anatomy book out and you'll see. In a normal one, it's straight up and down because it's not being tried to push this way. This one's being pushed this way. This is my evidence to support the statements that Velikovsky made. And I believe he was 100% right on the money. All right, let's see how good your brain works. I believe I showed you this, maybe yes, maybe no, but this is an artery. And arteries feed red blood through these little vessels to everywhere in your whole body. Every single cell has to have red blood. So there's like a zillion little, what they call this the Mars crab. They're like little crab legs sticking out into the muscle. Here it is right here. And it runs down here and it pumps blood all through into these areas here. And I'll tell you, I can give you the exact details of the anatomy here. These are sarcomeres. These little blocks. You see the block here? And little tiny stripes going that way? That's a muscle sarcomere. And that's how they're built. These are connective tissue. And in between them you have sarcoplasmic reticulum, it's called. And that's the gum that they just found on Bennu. I'm going to explain Bennu in a minute. It'll knock your socks off. This again is Mars. There is no erosion whatsoever here. If you look very closely, you see there is no erosion. They can't do this in a desert or on some island. I keep getting these crazy people that tell me, oh, no, nobody's ever left Earth. Just get off of that and start to understand what you see. This is just dusted out muscle sarcomeres. Now, what do muscle sarcomeres look like? Well, here's what they look like right here. There's tiny, tiny, tiny little lines in here, which are the connective tissue. And then around these is what's called sarcoplasmic reticulum, and it's the gum that pulls these together. They can restrict and relax, constrict and relax. And this is a heart attack victim. All right, they're not supposed to have this. It's supposed to be nice and squared off, just like this. And they have lines run down through them, and these are the gooey lines that would run out, and you would be left with nothing but the connective tissue, which is very, very, very tough. It's a better shot of it, but this is basically this is anatomically perfect because it's a picture, basically. All right, this shows relaxed and constricted muscle. All right, and all it does is there's this gooey, gummy stuff. It's called sarcoplasmic reticulum, and it pulls the muscle together. And you've got a bazillion of these in a row, and each one of them is just going about a zillionth of an inch. But between all of them, you get a pretty good pull in the muscle. But you have to have connective tissue. It can't all just be red gooey stuff. There is that in there. But in the midst of that is the connective tissue, which I showed you very clearly. It's in here. Now, if this eroded away and all the red stuff left, what would it look like? Well, here's what it would look like. It would look just like this. This is on Mars, too. They say this happened over millions of years. They say, oh, a little snowplow and a little of this and a little of that and a little of this and a little of that, millions of years. No. This was a gigantic creature. It died. And this is the red, fleshy stuff, the muscle goo, and a lot of it is the sarcoplasmic reticulum, which is the gum. And they just found this on Bennu. They just found the gum, and they found everything else, 100% of life, 100%. And then the other day, say, oh, we just found some gum. Well, the gum is the sarcoplasmic reticulum. This is muscle. That's what it is. It's eroded down and dusted out. And a lot of that is because of radiation. Everything that gets totally irradiated, like in a microwave oven, it's gonna fall apart. These don't fall apart easily. They can. But the connective tissue, very, very rare that it degrades. It stays virtually forever. So don't forget, that's the major artery that's supplying blood for these sarcomeres. Now, I'm going to show you what I have in my shop. It's virtually the same, only the blood vessels, they fall apart because they're soft. But up here, there's just nothing there's no wave erosion or any of that stuff. There's no mud around it or anything. It's just sort of sitting there being irradiated, and it left all the arms sticking out. So this is a mud fossil, and it's an arm or something, a shoulder, I'm not sure what, but there's the bone. And then it's got this coming across and it anchors right here to a tendon. And then at the abrupt transition, the muscle starts. This is the muscle. It's the same picture. It's just that this has the bone part showing, and that's up here. This is just tendon. That's why it's brown. There's no pink there. These are the blood supplies that supply blood for the muscle. I mean, it takes a ton of blood. Now, you can see the hole. You see the hole right there. You see those? It ran off in this direction, so this had to be tilted in a certain way that would have run off this way, and it did. It ran off in that direction. Now, out sticking out of these areas, there should have been little legs, and there were at one time, like the Mars crab. All right, and these here they start out with a lot of connective tissue, because this is all connective tissue. And this little circle right here, see this circle? That's the same circle as this right here. That's the center of the tendon, and it allows it to pivot this way. You got a lot of movement goes on with a tendon and an arm and a shoulder and a this and a that. This is just, and it's very elegant, very, very simple, very elegant. But this is the tough spot, gives it just enough to get to the muscle. Then the muscle starts to get a lot of connective tissue here. Well, it starts with a lot of connective tissue, and then it comes down to where you're into just those sarcomeres. But in the beginning, you almost continue the tendon, but you can see where they're breaking off right here. There's going to be abrupt transitions. We're done. We don't need any more of that connective tissue, heavy-duty stuff. So, but this is muscle. And this is the same muscle as they got up on Mars. All right, this stuff, this is not continuing over millions of years. And on Earth it was the same thing. We just almost got hit by Venus, or did get hit. And Venus sucked the juice right out of everything that comes near, it seems like. Mars ended up this way, in a very, very bad way. As I showed you, everything there is just dust. Dust in the wind. All it is dust in the wind. Now, what about this? Tight junctions. Not erosion. Somebody tell me that's erosion. I'd love to have somebody say, oh, no, just erosion. That's insanity. What causes these blocks? What's up with these tight junctions? What's going on there? Why is it identical to a creature's body? And when I say identical, I'm not talking close, I'm talking identical. No difference whatsoever. And the chemistry is the same. In certain cases, I don't want to go through the whole thing, but we boiled for over a year, Smithsonian says, and it boiled all of the stuff out of the fabric of the mud fossils, like this giant hair follicle. And then whatever came back, it's called nucleophilic invasion. It came back and took over every little bit of it, where the muscle attached, where the root is, where the sebaceous gland is. Now it's almost all virtually the same material, because it boiled everything out and there was nothing left but fabric, and the fabric got filled back in with whatever the particulates were in the area. Now, if you have a lot of blood in that area, Then you get some spectacular stuff like opals and things like that, because the blood, the transition metals carry the colors. Whole nother discussion. All right, so they're not going to bring the rocks back from Mars. That's a good thing. There's $7 billion, $11 billion. Well, why can't they deal with what they did bring back? And what did they bring back? Well, they brought this back. These are, and where'd they go? They went to Bennu. Bennu is, it's a good-sized asteroid. I think it's maybe a third of a mile across or something like that, a quarter of a mile. And they landed on there and blasted way down inside with nitrogen gases, grabbed a hold of this chunk, pulled it back, and brought it back to Earth. I know exactly what it is. And they should too. I know they know what it is. They just can't handle what it is. That, my friends, is biology. And I know exactly what it's, the heart. And that is heart muscle, cardiac muscle. Cut this way and looking down, you got all these tubes run like that. That's a special type of muscle. And these are sarcomeres. Sarcomeres are sarcomeres. But in a muscle, they run all these different ways, like I just showed you. Sarcomeres are these blocks. I showed you the blocks before. Now, they had to penetrate through a membrane, because the heart is coated with a membrane. They had to get through the membrane strong enough, hard enough to get into where the muscle was, and they did. And that is the bundles of muscle. And here, I'm going to just show you once again. Sarcomeres, the little blocks, cardiac muscle, the ropes, the membrane. And the membrane was what they call the phosphate surprise, because it's the phospholipids make phosphates. So there's the different types of muscles. What we're looking at is the cardiac, the heart. And it was cut this way, and we're looking in, and you can see all the bundles sort of wiggle and tangle around, which is exactly what we saw. And then we also saw the sarcomeres. Then there's another thing that's called the sarcoplasmic reticulum, which is the gum that makes them pull in and out and sheaths all of the tubes, called sarcoplasmic reticulum. It's a gum. And they found that a few weeks ago, and they, oh boy, we found gum. It's 100% of us, identical. Same as us, same as any animal. You got DNA, you got ribonucleic acids, RNA molecules. These are not unsophisticated molecules, these are very sophisticated. And I'm sure if they look carefully, they would find catalase, which is an enzyme that is in all living things, catalase. And I'm sure they would find some in that membrane area, because that's where it collects. So it's 100% of the chemistry, 100% of the chemistry that's in us, they have found. The blood, everything. It's the exact same stuff. And we saw the cardiac muscle, the bundles. These are the sarcomeres, and they found the sarcoplasmic reticulum, the gum. And there's nothing they haven't found. Not only that, it looks like a heart. You see, this is what a heart looks like when the plumbing on the top comes off, and it does. It comes off because it's basically glued on there. They come off, and the bucket drops, and you end up with this, which is the same thing as Psyche, which is the same thing as Bennu, the one they just came back from. And they're going to Psyche right now because they know there's a lot of money up there in metals. So this is one of the big valves. There's another valve. And I think this is another valve here. It's a little hard to tell, but these are valves. And when they show you what Psyche looks like, you can see it's 100% certainty it's a heart. I mean, it doesn't have tubes coming out of it. These are the valves. These are the colors of blood. They're headed there right now with a spacecraft to land on here, and I don't know what they're planning to do. But these are the 3 different colors of blood, the black, the yellow, the red. These are the heart valves. Any heart surgeon, look at that, they would understand it. This is it's like a tendinous material that locks in so that the muscle has something to anchor against. And I think I showed you that here. It's this stuff. And all that stuff is ripped off. And they just do that. And I have a friend who is an autopsy anatomist. He does, he studies the human body, cadavers. And he said, yes, they come apart very easily. He said, I always wondered about that. And it's because it's iron banding. There's a red and a blue that run right around here, and they pop each other apart. So they know that this is biology. They know it's 100% biology. They think, oh, maybe it's going to bring that biology to us. No. Everything was hit and smashed and destroyed, and things were thrown into space. As you can see what happened to the Grand Canyon. Absolutely ripped to shreds. And there'd be a heart in here. Psyche is 140 miles across. Psyche, that heart, that big heart with the tube coming out, 140 miles across. That would work with something like about this size. There's things thrown into space around here. And we have meteorite showers all the time. Plus, I have things that are, this is biology. I know exactly what this is. And it's from a small creature. It's a small lung. And I can tell that in a number of ways. And one of them is the attachment point. And the other one is it's got all the little alveoli in here that blew out from being exploded as it came through space. And it turned it into strong enough that it's not solid iron, but it's pretty good. And the key is with meteorites, the bigger they get, the more they explode. The littler ones tend to maintain their integrity, and I have several here, and they're all biology, 100%, all of them. So until we can understand what we're really up against here, we're just walking around in circles. All of this stuff came almost within the first few days. NASA may have found fossils on Mars. They had all kinds of stuff, as I just showed you, all of those things, the Mars crab, the Mars Morse code, the Mars blueberries, the Mars sarcomeres, and they're all the same stuff that is in the samples they brought back from Bennu. It's the same stuff. So we're living in a biological universe. There is nothing here that isn't biological. I don't care what you say. And these, like these blocks right here, you see these? These are the same ones that are up on, that are the ones from the pregnant lady. That stuff there, right here. Up in Baalbek. You see this seam down here? This thing was completely covered with a thickness about like that, which allowed it to slide in and out, because this is a tendon. I have exact same tendons here. And so I have them still with the coating on it. But somebody chiseled all that off and all that off on the other side, and then they were going to just pop it off of here and move it to wherever they wanted. Now I have one here. Oh, that's the same. This is the same as that. And this is the thickness. See it right there? That's the thickness of this that wraps around this. And they chisel all that stuff off, and then they get down to that solid stuff. Now the way they had it here, they had chiseled all this off everywhere except from underneath. And there was a lot of them. They took a whole batch of these out. There wasn't just one laying here. They were everywhere. And the creatures must have been absolutely stunningly large to be able to move that. It was a different time. And then there was the Great Flood. That's a leftover of the Great Flood. They were mining this when the Great Flood happened. And it's just ended up laying here. And the Great Flood was a catastrophe recorded by every culture on Earth. And Velikovsky reported on it, and they destroyed him. They destroyed his life. Now, I've been trying, I sent all this stuff to NASA when Curiosity went up there, because I already knew mud fossils by that point, and finally I wrote a paper, I had DNA tests done and CAT scans, and nothing seems to matter to academia. And this is the part they just found, is this sarcoplasmic reticulum, this gum. And they said, well, we found some gum on her. Well, yes, because they're muscles. And they are muscles, and all of these are hearts. And thank God they canceled that silly mission for $11 billion they wanted to go back up there to pick up these things that, you know, if you can't deal with the facts when the facts present themselves, you should not be doing this work. They should not be doing this work if they can't deal with that. And I have shown enough evidence to convince any rational mind that this is just too much overwhelming evidence. All shows that there was life on Mars, and it was wiped out because of Venus hitting it, just exactly what the ancient people said. And this only happened 3,500 years ago, about 1500 BC. So, you know, hopefully they will do something about this and announce, yes, this is biology, and yes, this was a giant creature, and yes, we have all the evidence to support it, and yes, these ancient texts were not silly. They weren't silly. And believing in God and all that stuff is not silly either. You have to find your own way on that, but I'm going to tell you one thing right now. This is not just a bunch of molecules bumped into each other, came from some big bang of nothing into everything, and nothing but slime out there, which is what Yale says. Oh yeah, mud fossils have exceptional preservation of soft-bodied creatures. It's exactly what their paper is, exceptional preservation due to silica-rich oceans. The whole world was covered with one big ocean, they say, worldwide. They happen to be in an area where there's sand, maybe, but mud is where I am, and the mud makes fossils preserve in what you would call extremely exceptional preservation. And I have things that are unknown to humanity right now. There was creatures here we just don't know about. And they were giants. There was dragons. There was everything that they talked about and said that was here in Apollodorus and Ovid, Hesiod. There's a whole lot that we don't know. Let me put it that way. And I'm going to leave it at that. But thank God they realized, wipe that thing out. And I think they should do something congressional about this. Over $1 billion on this. There's way over $1 billion to do this. And this has been back here since 2023. So it's almost 2.5 years, 2 years. And I've reported over and over and over and over and over. And I mean, I've been pushing this thing because it's just insanity to find the answer to something and not accept the answer. That is not science, my friends. That smacks of a whole different reason for being there. And I think you know what the reason is. In my opinion, it's just to get more funds and keep on walking around in circles. Don't look at the answers, because the answers are going to cause a lot of disruption. Yes. You want to walk in truth? You want to live truthfully? You want to live in a bunch of lies? It's up to you.